Well, here we go with another addition here. Still plugging away at it. As you can see right here, just coming back after fiberglass had cured totally on these starboard compartments here in the center. I'm just coming back and cutting off that excess fiberglass from the top. And this is a little Harbor Freight blade here. So if you get a chance to go pick up this Harbor Freight blade, and you could probably pass on that one, but if that's all you can get, I mean, you can see it works. I went back over here to just a fast wood bit, and it seems to work a lot better. I'm just cutting out these notches here where the floor supports will go in, and it's pretty straightforward. This little tool doesn't create a lot of dust, so you don't get a lot of itching, which is a real big benefit in doing it this way. So that's all we're doing right here. Now I'm just laying out these fiberglass pieces. This is 1808 biaxial. Just laying it in these. These are actually on the port side, and planning on trying to pull those fillets and all in here later today. So all I'm doing is just pre-fitting the fiberglass, which I hadn't done this before, and it hadn't worked out real well. But doing it this way, it's certainly a lot easier in the end. There's something else that I've learned along the way. These are just some little shears I got off Amazon. They work pretty good. You just got to take your time. So what I do is here, just kind of cut it to the longest dimension and length, and I'm just going to lay it in here as it goes, just using some little blue painter's tape here to kind of help hold it up, because as normal I kind of work by myself here. So just tape it up there and mark it off, and come back and just trim it wherever it needs to. Just going to speed it up a little bit here, just because I think you kind of get the idea, but that way I can still show the process, but it doesn't take forever. But because I'm not the fastest at doing this, just take and label the bottom of it, which direction it goes in here, mark it with the Sharpie on the tops, and also mark where those floor supports will go, and then just trim it off. And you can see they're all labeled, so I know exactly where they go back in. I actually have it written in the bottom of the compartments which ones they go in, and then I split at the top where those little floor supports are. Kind of helps it out. I'll show you a little lesson right here. This is pretty important. As I start, you'll see me start taking this tape off right about here. That first one I got pretty lucky, and then this one, that fiberglass is so, I guess it's supple is probably the right word, that tape kind of pulled it and did whatever. So I was able to cautiously stop and then just cut it off without really tearing it up. But as you can see here, from now on, I put my hand below it, or I pull the tape, and make sure I don't pull that apart anymore. And now we're just moving on. I'm going to start pulling these fillets here. This is the first time I've used this little spatula. I just picked it up at the dollar store. It was like $1.25, which dollar store is now $1.25. So that's a result of a little bit of inflation some people may be experiencing. Sarcastically I say that, but this thing is really good. I also bought that tub there from Home Depot. It's a 2.5 quart tub. And that's what I'm making my thickened epoxy, and so I'm able to make a bigger batch, which is helpful because as I've been doing this, I'm getting faster at it. This little tool here helps me get it out and kind of gets it in the joints a lot easier. And as I've watched this a few times, I bounce around all over the place. What I've learned now, going back and looking at this, is if you start in the corners and pull the verticals and get those right, then the bottom ones, that's where you can use a lot more of that material. But it's all the same. And here you can see this is an area I'll focus on later. It's where we used a piece of board to join that stringer. It's kind of a butt joint with a reinforcement, but where that 90-degree turn is right there, I've learned in the first ones I did that you really got to put that and smooth that out. Almost not even come in on a 45, but maybe come in on a 60-degree angle to help the fiberglass make that transition and still lay flat. I'm gonna speed this up a little bit because I think, once again, I think you can still see the process. It takes me a while, but by and large, I'm still here just spreading it out. Now I've taken my little painter stick that I've got a radius on, and I'm pulling the fillet, pulling the actual radius everywhere. And once again, here's where you should start in the corners, or what I think works best. You start in the corners and then come back around. What I'll also learned is that with that spatula, after you've pulled the radius you need, don't focus so much on the corners, and then after all that's done, you can come back with that little spatula, and it just makes the smoothest transition and cleans that corner up. Which, you know, these compartments here, none of this will ever be seen again, but it helps the fiberglass to lay, which is what's really important to me. Now this is, once again, this, you can't see it, but this is another one of those butt joints that I'm working on, trying to pull a long gradual slope to go from that doubler down to that single piece of stringer. So that's what I'm working on there. All right, here we are this morning. We got all this filleted in, those two compartments, and then this one here. We're gonna lay in fiberglass on that this morning. I'm fixing to get ready to put the roller down, roll out a coat of epoxy on them, let that tack up a little bit, and then come back. And as soon as we get those done, I'm coming back here and try and get all 4 of these at once. May try and put the fillets in there today, depending on what else I got to do. This little scraper tool here has been very handy, especially like on these edges where you got some of that fillet stuff that was rough. You just take it and just scrape it off. It helps to get that epoxy off. It's a whole lot quicker and handier than trying to sand it. So that's been working pretty good. Pulled all these fillets yesterday. That's just a little bit of extra. I know I'll have to come back and sand that, but at least I'm same thing here. At least I was able to try and utilize the epoxy, and that, you know, putting it on the outside like that, it's pretty easy to get to with that file sander. But something else that I use this time, let me see if I can get over here and grab it. There's a dollar store find, and I found this, I think it was a Harry Spear somewhere online, but this little spatula, or whatever you want to call it, it's real flexible on the tip, so it's hard to hang on to. But like whenever you're finishing up your fillets, especially in these corners, being able to lay that in there and just kind of make it real smooth without moving a lot of material around, you know, and especially like going along here and trying to just make sure all that's kind of laying down flat. And I didn't do such a good job right there, but like laying this around in here, like I say, with that radius on it, it's almost the same radius as we're trying to put in that corner. So it kind of goes in there real nice and smooths it out really nice. It's also really good for getting the thickened epoxy out of the tub. We've got a couple of bigger tubs, so I'm able to make bigger batches of thickened epoxy. But that's it right now. You see it's a pretty day out there. Hopefully we got some cooler weather and sun shining, so I'm gonna try and make hay. All right, here's a good example. These are the little things right here, you know, where I hit something, or I don't know, looks like the edge of the jug hit up against here, and some of these little epoxy, thickened epoxy. Now when that gets hard, it gets real difficult. Let me see if I can show you. It's probably not all the way cured yet, but that's where I take this little scraper here. If it was hard, it would just pop off of it. See, there's one here. Yeah, it's just not all the way cured. That's just must have been where I set the jug yesterday and it laid up against in there. So about to get after this and fixing to, like I said, lay the base coat down. I'll try and video all of this, the wetting out. And it's sunny today, so I'm able to open the back side of the tin up, kind of have a little little more working area. Don't have to go to carport with the fiberglass. So we'll see how all this goes, but right now, one step at a time. So what I'm doing here is just going to start mixing some thinned epoxy. I'm using, actually, these are 32-ounce jugs that or containers that I'm pouring into, as opposed to, I've been using 20s and actually 8s. I have all 4 sizes, actually, all the way up to 2.5 quarts. They're all graduated and marked for mixtures. And you can see there on the top of that container, that's my hardener. I try and make sure that I distinguish it. It's actually pretty cool this morning, so you can see I'm setting those jugs out in the sun. I'm just trying to make sure that I don't have any long cure times on this stuff, so that's why I did that. So here we go. I've got that thinned epoxy, and all I'm going to do is just start brushing it in here. I'll go into these rollers. I mean, this is actually I think a mohair. I'm the last one to trust on pronunciation or enunciation. But all I'm doing here is just I'm laying this on here so to help try and seal that wood up. Also to give me something to seal that fiberglass to, or so that it sticks to the walls. Another thing that I've learned is right before you go to install your fiberglass, is to run your roller over it, and especially make sure it's nice and tacky, or make sure it's wet, so that when you put that fiberglass up there, that it's sticky, and it's a lot easier to get it to lay down. I'm once again speeding up through here. It's pretty straightforward, just painting this epoxy down through here. Now I'm going to stop right here and show you. This is another one thing I talked about, that scraper. There's a little piece in there where that epoxy is kind of cured, and even though I've put some thinned epoxy on it, just take that scraper and hit it, and most times if it's small, like if it's where a droplet or something is just hit, it'll pop right off. Especially if it's not too old, which none of my stuff is old, so that thing is just really handy. Once again, just another view. You can just see this is the more forward compartment I'm going to be doing. I once again sped it up a little bit just because you can get the idea. But I right or wrong, I try not to be too greedy with the epoxy, especially because it's either going to soak into the wood and saturate the wood, or it's eventually going to help just bond the fiberglass, because I'm trying to lay all of this. So I mean, it takes me 10 or 12 minutes or 15 minutes per little compartment to actually place the fiberglass. So it certainly has enough time to get in there and kind of start tacking up a little bit or whatever. And I spread it out as best I can, but I don't want to get greedy on this side of things and have my fiberglass be resin starved because the wood soaked it up too much. So here we go. This is a little table. I've got a piece of 3/4 inch plywood that I had, and I'm putting some like 4 mil visqueen or plastic liner I got from Home Depot, and this is so I'm able to put it right there by the boat. And because it's really flat, it seems that this fiberglass really wets out pretty good. I didn't get any video of this fiberglass going in, but I do get this. This is the little keel reinforcement strip. But once again, I'm able to, with that scraper and do all that, get that fiberglass nice and wetted before I put it in place. So this is where I'm just wetted out that strip, that keel reinforcement strip right there, and I'm gonna put it in place. We'll try and let this run at normal speed just to kind of give you an idea. That's a little sponge roller that you see on there. It's just a cheap little sponge roller. The problem with those is that if I try and go too long, the epoxy will actually eat that thing up, and it starts coming apart. And obviously in the bottom of the boat here, it's not that big of a deal. But what I found is these little bitty short nap rollers. The mohair, when I had it on there earlier, I talked about that. It seemed to also break down. I know that the guy from Boatworks today uses that, but maybe he just uses that for paint, because I think maybe he does use a nap roller for most of this, or a foam roller. I'm not a fan, at least my experience, of the mohair or the little foam. I like the little nap rollers, real short nap. You'll see it here in a little while. But once again, I'm speed this up a little bit just in the interest of time. But you can see what I should do is use this foam roller, nap roller, whatever. I kind of go to this fin roller a little bit, because if I need to move the fiberglass just a little bit, it's a little easier. But what I found is if I let that fiberglass and epoxy sit up there and work for a while and then come back with the fin roller, it works pretty good. This is also a pretty wide one. I was trying this one. Let's say it's about 5 inches wide. I don't like it near as much as I do the one that's about 3 inches and has a little bit bigger radius, but I was trying this one. That little napkin wrapped around there, that's another good tip. That's just another box of disposable rags that I use, and it's nice to wrap them around there, because when I'm dealing with this fiberglass, I constantly have it on my hands. All I'm doing here, once again, is just trying to get all the air bubbles out, and then go over the fiberglass. Once again, I've done quite a few since I've done this one, but just to sit there and roll it out, not putting a ton of pressure on it, but just continue to roll it. And that fiberglass also going sideways like that right there, is after you see that cloth kind of starts to get wavy at the top. If you turn and go horizontal along those stringers, for whatever reason, it really makes that fiberglass kind of spread out and lay down real flat. And so now here it is, I'm just going with this outside compartment. Same thing, I'll probably let this run a little bit faster. It's maybe 2 speed right here, once again, just in the interest of time. Not to mention, you can't really see what I'm doing. It's not optimal because of my camera angles here, but I'm trying to do the best I can by myself, and remembering to set the camera. But all we're doing here, same process as you just saw there. Wet it out before you put the fiberglass in there. Wet the fiberglass out before you put that in there, and then just use your hands to kind of get it tacked up and moved around and in position. With those gloves, you can see me using the backs of my hands to just kind of get it laid around. Another tip is, you can see that mark I have right there. That's another little doubler. The one you saw me trying to flatten out earlier is to have those reference points, so that when you put it in there, you know exactly where it goes. Just kind of letting this one run all the way out. You can tell, this even in, I think this may either be 2 speed or sped up 2 times or 4 times. It just takes a while, and I'm not in a hurry. What I want to point out here is because of that slope of the boat and the angle of the boat, what you always want to do is start with the acute angle, the one that's towards the bottom of the boat, and get that cloth to set right. If not, I found that I fought air bubbles in the corners, and as you try and flatten it out on one, it either pulls from the angle like I'm working there, or it pulls it down at the top. So if you start on that sharp angle and get it right, it tends to be the less fighting that I have to do to get it to lay flat. So once you do that, once again, all you got to do is go in here and just keep that roller working. Once again, I can't say enough about having those just little disposable white box of rags and napkins or whatever, because it's just nice to wrap them around there, so because these things get slick. And here you can see I'm turning that roller sideways, which to help make that cloth kind of lay down. And you don't have to use a lot of pressure with these fin rollers. It's pretty amazing that just a little bit of pressure in there, and they help to lay it all down and get the air bubbles out. Yeah, like I talked about before, you see how I turn that roller sideways right there to get those little waves at the top there, and it just, for whatever reason, it just helps. Like I said earlier, the little foam rollers, they just kind of come apart, and you can see this one starting to come apart right now. Well, this is what I was hoping to accomplish this morning. Got this one, that one, and that one. So that makes all of these internals, and then these two here, all that I can do before I put the chimes and see here, this one, I can't finish closing this box in until I put the chimes on. So I may put the chimes on and then close those four up, or I may just go ahead and put the sides on it and just have to stand on my head. So the next step, like I said, maybe this afternoon or this evening, I'll come in here and put the fillets in all four of these. I can get all four of these internal tanks here, or compartments, and get all of those, and then we'll be ready to put the chimes and the sides on, and move on up the edges here. Once again, you can't do any of those because that fiberglass there wraps up the sides. And the transom, I'm just kind of waiting on it to get everything together. Still got to put the little I don't know what you call them, little braces, or I'm brain dead right now. That's it. Got all this done. I'll come back, like I said, and I'm gonna sand these little extra fillets that I had epoxy, so I had already thickened epoxy, so I went ahead and made those, and I'll just rough those up just so I don't waste the epoxy. But speaking of wasted epoxy, I got my first little sign of it kicking off too hard on me. It is hard as a rock. It started smoking while I was doing that rear compartment, so I lost right about 10 ounces of mixed epoxy, and that's what I was trying to use to wet out one of those rear compartments. But I just that's the first time it's ever gotten thick or hard on me or anything, so I was right in here, and I was trying to do flood coat on this, and it kicked off, and so I had to abandon ship on that and go make some more. That's all right. That's another little learning lesson. So we will keep going. All right, so this is what we got going this morning. Just checked the drawings and the website and all, and there was some other people that didn't tab in these on the ends here. So best I can tell, that needs to be done. I certainly not gonna hurt anything. So I got to come back, and since I just did these yesterday, I'm gonna come back and pull those tabs on the end, tie all that together. I'm gonna do that right after. I'm gonna try and get all 4 of these fiberglass today. I got them all, got the fiberglass and all cut, and the weather's nice, so I'm gonna try and get in here right now and pull these fillets, let them cure for a little while, and then fiberglass those with the tabs all at the same time, and then come back and start doing all these. I want to hit these 3 for sure, because I just did those and they're not fully cured yet. You can still see this has still got some pliability to it, so should be good, should bond good and all. Maybe it's just me, but I find it like these verticals, and I'm telling you that I put a ton of epoxy on these. I like those. They kind of, it's like the epoxy goes down, but it's certainly, I mean, and I wetted it out before I even hung it up there, but it's like the epoxy's running out of it. So same thing here. All that will never be seen. It should all be good. I did, at least on these, I cut them a little bit longer, and they at least turned the edge of the fillet, which is what I wanted to do originally. But just to be safe, I'm gonna do like I did that one. I'm gonna come back, and I've got some scrap pieces of fiberglass that I can put in there, so that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna get to making some thickened epoxy and start pulling some fillets. So this is, once again, it's just another angle of pulling fillets and using this little spatula. And like I said, I think this is the next day. So I'm getting better at using it. And this one doesn't have any doublers on the sides, but it does have that little keel section. That's the keel pad that goes towards the stern. This is actually the starboard rear of the boat. But it's the same thing as those doublers, is that you'll see me putting a layer of thickened epoxy in there to kind of really smooth that transition, so that fiberglass can lay on that bottom really nice. But that also went with I got a little wider scraper here, because I know I'm gonna come back today and finish up all this. But this is what I'm talking about, how I'm using that spatula here in the corners. I tried to slow it down where you could see it a little bit better, but it really works if you pull those vertical sides first, and then use your little tool, your little radius tool, and then come back and use that spatula. It makes it just butter smooth. I mean, it's just, that's why they use these things for ice cakes. And in the interest of trying not to just show the same thing over and over and over again, I just thought this was a better angle, and I sped it up just because we've seen the details, and now I'm just going to show you the kind of the technique. Just use that spatula with that tub, and just it almost matches the radius, and I can really get it in these corners and all really well, and it spreads out well. It's easy to get out of the tub, so I don't have to worry about the tub kicking off on me. And I can get it in there. I think right now I'm actually talking to my neighbor, so I get a little distracted. He's back over here just talking to me and whatnot. So now I've got my little radius tool. I'm pulling the exact radius, and which makes it really easy. You'll see me as I pull that radius. If I don't have enough, if I don't have enough epoxy, I back up with that dab that I have on the end, lay it flat, and kind of push it into the bottom, and then come back and hold it almost straight up and down and pull it. And you can see how I got a little bit on the edge there. And then once all that's done, like I said, I just come back with that little spatula and just smooth it all out. And it's not only does it make it look better here, but it makes, when I lay the fiberglass, a whole lot better on not having any areas that I have to worry about air being trapped, or the fiberglass not being able to lay flat. So here it is. I'm putting up some of these little tabs in the end. Once again, I can't find it in the plans. Maybe the plans are just because the fiberglass itself is 50 inches wide. That gets you about an inch inch and a half, maybe 2 inches on each end. I want to say these compartments here are about 47 inches long in the bottom. So all I've done, and I've left some of these a little bit short because I'm really considering, because I'm not necessarily a small guy, coming back and putting floor bracing all the way around the top, just everywhere, also to help the floor bond well, which I'm sure it's going to be fine. But just in case I come back and do that, it's going to make it a little bit easier not having to sand down all that fiberglass, and I'm sure I'm still accomplishing the loading or whatever that we need to with these tabs in the edges. So this is I want to say the next day, and maybe this stuff was going to be green enough to come back in here and just cut it with the razor knife, but no. This is this little multi-tool with this fast wood cutting bit on here just comes in, and you see it doesn't make a lot of small dust. I mean, I'm sure you can see some dust, but it's handy, and not like running a sand or anything like that. But it is a problem when you're wearing those rubber gloves, that little fiberglass at the top. It gets like spikes, and it wreaks havoc on those gloves. So now here it is. I've moved where I was just cutting that flush and all that stuff in the upper right there. That's actually on the port side of the boat. So now I'm back on the starboard, and all of these areas that I had cured, this has probably been in there a week now, maybe or more. It's been in there too long for me to not feel good about putting the sander on it and roughing it up. And I try and put long sleeves on and wear my gloves or respirator, and that shop vac helps. It's a high volume. I think it's like a 14-gallon one. It moves a lot of air, but it sucks a lot of that dust up, so I don't have an issue with it. And now here I'm just showing a little bit of this. This is just where I just sanded all those areas. I'd already sanded the ends of the walls there, and they needed to be sealed with epoxy, whether I put the tabs in there or not. But this is just where I'm gonna pre-coat the ends of it, and also the edges right there where that fiberglass has already been laid, and then I'll just continue. You'll see I'll start putting the tabs in. Once again, just speed this up. This isn't rocket science at this point. Just coat the ends, coat where the tabs are going to go. I kind of cut the tabs because of the width of the roller. They're gonna stick out that far anyway. So pretty straightforward what I'm doing here. I'm just putting these tabs on this side so that at this point, from this point forward, everything that I lay in there will have tabs in it. Yeah, and this is just another little tab. You can see I just put that stuff in there, so it's nice and wet or tacky. It's been in there for a little while, but this is kind of a, said I was going to show all the good, the bad, and the ugly. And even though this is going fast, the edges of this thing, because I was worried about it sticking up too tall, you can see the one side sticks up. I was worried about the other side, but I guess because it wasn't really wet, like the edge of it starts coming apart and hangs up on that roller, and it's like once you start pulling it, like right there, you can see it becomes like a whole spider web out in here. And I finally just pull it off to the side and stayed away from it and let it get hard and come back in there and cut it off later. But that's one of the things that I've learned to regret. Try and make sure that I don't do that. Don't pull the fiberglass apart when I'm pulling the tape off, and don't whenever I see a little piece like that, be careful that it doesn't grab anything and start pulling out. Look at that spider web there. That's crazy. But the process here is the same. You put down thin epoxy, I wet out the little pieces, the little tabs I'm calling, whatever the hell they're called. And then I just come back in there with this roller, and once again, it's a mohair roller. I tried it again and it broke down again. So And now we're going to move. You can see this is a little nap roller that I really like. These are the rear 4 compartments that I've been talking about wanting to get done. So I pulled the fillets this morning, and they've been curing while I cut off the tops of the other ones, and we did those tabs and did all that sanding. So all that while these fillets and all were in there. And once again, this is just another example of putting the fiberglass in there. But because I guess that little nap roller, if you ever used a roller that's dry with paint, as you roll it, you can hear it kind of pulling up that surface, and it really made it grab this fiberglass really well. So I'm gonna try. I just bought some more of those to try and use those. I think these compartments here are really starting to show that I'm kind of getting the hang of. I hate to say that out loud, but I'm kind of getting the hang of it. Of putting this stuff in there. It's coming out pretty well. Yeah, this is the C section here. If you've got the plans, it's right in front of the transom. So this will be the port side right in front of the transom. You can see there's plenty of moisture in there, and this one you can just throw it in there. There's those little fibers have gotten to be little things. I mean, they're like little demons. And this one it's like I could have stood on the side of the boat and just thrown it in there. It goes in there really well, but still it takes a while. I try and take my time and roll it out. For whatever it's worth, like I said, I think this roller here, the fact that the fillets are smoother, everything, the transitions are good, it just makes it really easy to put everything in. All right, I came in here this morning, once again, put all these little tabs in the ends. Every box didn't have one when I originally did it. I looked at the plans and I still don't see it, so a little overkill. Some of these I kind of left a little bit short because I didn't know if I was going to come back in here and put some floor, for lack of a better term, some floor bracing. So did all of those, showed a little bit of that, tried to record some of that earlier. Just putting these tabs in here, some of these along. I came back and you can see this morning I cut off all the tops of these. So still got those to do, and you can see laying up there I've got one chine, that's the port chine. And what I'm about to do now, I'll give you a look at it. I mean, this is actually the starboard chine, even though it's right now it's on the port side. You can see it's upside down. I'm gonna take these off, take all these pieces off, and I got it mocked up like this, but I'm gonna be changing it. My best guess and estimate is I'm gonna bring this out here and flush it to the outside, so that it'll be flush to the outside all the way from stern to bow. I just feel like that's the way that it's got to be for that chine to be uniform all the way in. Other than that, so that's what I'll be doing. Take this off. I'll get up underneath here, take them off section by section. I'll take that one off, take it off, coat it with epoxy, put the thickened epoxy, screw them back together, probably put some clamps on it. Then I'll do this little section here, and then last I'll do the little short end section. But I'll try and just show what I do. It's kind of the normal procedure of how you build the boat. Is you just coat it with mixed epoxy, thin epoxy, and then have some thickened epoxy and bond the two together. So that's what we're going to be doing now. So here it is. I just got it upside down, and the screws on the bottom, which is it's a pain in the neck, but it's just better the way that it's done. I just back them out. This will actually be the top of the starboard chine, and so all I'm doing is backing the screws out right here like I talked about, and I'll flip that piece off, wet it out, thicken the epoxy, put it back on there. just kind of showing this in regular motion. Started having some camera trouble. I started having some file corruptions or whatever, and the camera started acting weird and cutting off on me. So I'm gonna have to go to some time-lapse stuff. Luckily, I kind of do both ways just in case something like this happens. But pretty straightforward. I'm gonna do this 2 to 3 sections. About to happen pretty fast here with this time-lapse kicking off. You can see what's going on here. Alright, so what I'm doing now is I'm cutting these gussets in the transom, and I'm going to go ahead and make it where I can screw them in, and when I put them in there with thickened epoxy, but making all the bottoms and all square, and I'll kind of show you how I do that. So take the piece that's got a square cut right here, put it in there, and you can see this one doesn't fit bad. See, so if that's the case, just take it and I'll mark it at the top, take it back over to the miter saw and cut it off. Not proud. Don't need much. And then you see it's already got that little fillet in there, so I just round it off. Before I cut it, I put a little round over bit on it. So that one will go right there. I appreciate you watching. This is just kind of the general layout. We're going to keep plugging away at it. Every day we're learning a little bit. Once again, we're building the flats version. This plans come in the bay or the flats, but I'm going to be building the flat side. So appreciate it if you could subscribe, comment, whatever. I'm always looking for some feedback, and once again, I try and respond to everybody as I can.